Now, having said all that, it's very important to point out that whether you use one of these pelleted foods or decide you're willing to go to the extra time and expense of following one of the homemade diets, this is only the first part of a sugar glider's complete daily diet. The ideal sugar glider diet consists of 3 basic components. The first is the core nutritional foundation, which are the pellets we've been talking about so far on this video. Generally speaking, this should make up about 75% of the animal's daily dietary intake. The remaining 25% of a sugar glider's daily diet should be fresh fruits and vegetables. Just like with the complicated homemade diets, fruits and veggies are also a hotly debated subject out on the internet. Amateur enthusiasts often claim that fruits and vegetables should make up as much as 50 to 75% of a sugar glider's diet, but that is not only false, but it's actually dangerous to the animal's health. In many ways, sugar gliders are a lot like human children, in that if you give them a choice between eating sweet things or things that are good for them, they'll almost always eat the sweet things until they are full. In fact, this is one of the main problems with a lot of the homemade internet-based diets, because almost all of them encourage laying out a whole smorgasbord of different foods at the same time, like a bowl of the homemade concoction, another bowl of fruits and vegetables, a third bowl of dry food, and a whole range of other things like crickets and mealworms. Again, not only is this completely unnecessary, but it can be dangerous to your glider's health. The simple fact is that sugar gliders love to eat sweet foods like fruits, yogurts, especially insects, and just like little kids, if you give them a choice, they will almost always eat these things first, and instead of other foods that are actually better for them. Then, over time, the more an animal is fed these kinds of junk foods, the less they will want to eat the nutritious ones. Before long, the animal ends up at an office like mine in terrible shape with a whole bunch of different health problems, and unfortunately many times they're so far gone that we can't save them. Essentially, it would be no different than if you fed a human child a junk food diet of candy, cereal, and soda pop all day, and then for dessert put out a plate of broccoli. They just won't eat it. The difference with sugar gliders is that since they only weigh a few ounces, they can get sick pretty quick, so it's best not to risk it. Now, remember, that being said, always remember that fresh fruits and vegetables should be limited to only about 25% of your sugar glider's daily dietary intake. In most cases, this would be no more than 1/8 of a slice of apple, or roughly the equivalent in other fruits and vegetables per animal per day. Now, the last essential element of a healthy sugar glider's diet is a calcium-based multivitamin. Many of the most serious health problems we vets see in sugar gliders are directly related to poor vitamin and mineral supplementation. Among other things, these animals need a very specific ratio of calcium to phosphorus and vitamin D, and without it, they can develop crippling bone disease, paralysis, and even die. When it comes to picking out the best multivitamin for your sugar glider, it's important to make sure you get one that is specifically made just for sugar gliders and not for other animals. Actually, the best thing to do is to get a vitamin supplement that is specifically formulated to work with the rest of your glider's food. For example, each of the pelleted foods we talked about earlier has a specific multivitamin supplement that is made to go along with it. Between the two, they work hand in hand like a 1-2 punch that meets all your glider's daily nutritional needs. So don't mix and match when it comes to their food and vitamins. Now, the scientific field of animal nutrition is constantly evolving, so just to recap, based on the latest nutritional science and over a decade of field research, the diet we recommend is 75% pellet food, 25% fruits and vegetables, and a multivitamin supplement that is designed specifically to match the pelleted food. All totaled, this should cost you somewhere around $10 per month per animal, making sugar gliders one of the most economical pets a person can own. Now, Having said all that, let's move on to how to feed this diet to your gliders. First, assuming that you're using a pelleted food as the main component of their diet, just keep about 2 ounces of this food per animal in their cage at all times. Each day, simply dump out the crumbs, refill it about halfway, and replace it. Then, every night, just before you go to bed, put the fresh fruits and vegetables in the cage. Try not to dice them up small because they will dry out quickly and deprive the animal of important juices. Lastly, every other night, sprinkle the multivitamin lightly over the fruits and vegetables and you're all set. Now, if you want to give them a little extra treat a couple times a week, you can also put a small piece of wheat bread into their cage at night. They'll love it, but just make sure only to do it no more than a couple times a week. Well, that's really about all there is to it. As you can see, if you follow the diet we've just laid out for you, feeding a sugar glider is no more complicated than a dog or a cat, and it's a heck of a lot cheaper. Now, of course, just like any pet, you're free to make it as complicated and expensive as you like, but the point is it doesn't have to be a big, expensive ordeal. So, about the only other thing that we still need to cover on this video is this big plastic box here. This is one important piece of equipment. It's basically what we call a dining room, and if you make one of these little beauties, it's going to save you a lot of time, trouble, and money. The thing is, sugar gliders are playful and they love to pick up their food and throw it all around. They also like to poop and pee while they're jumping around their cage. Because of these little habits, if you don't have one of these dining rooms in your cage, you'll find that about 80% or more of the food you put in their cages every day gets wasted and ends up on the bottom of the cage. Even though their food isn't expensive, it can still add up very quickly and become a big waste of money. So that's why we recommend that you make one of these little beauties. Now, basically, it's just a plastic shoebox turned upside down with a hole cut in each end. Pretty much any kind of plastic box or bowl will work, but you just have to make sure it's about 4 inches tall and it's big enough that it'll hold all their food and them at the same time. They really work well because when it's time to change the food, you simply pull out the whole box, clean it out, and replace it. It also cuts down a lot on the mess around the cage, so it really helps to keep things neat and tidy. Well, that's about it for this video. I know it was a long one, but it's a very important topic that can be very confusing, expensive, and dangerous if you take the wrong advice.